Due to audio-graded on-demand service still being repaired, and thus not being able to use that service for either the iTunes podcast feed or regular archiving purposes, I once again present the Geeky.com archive version of this week's The Raz Man's Reality Radio Show via YouTube's video upload service. Enjoy the show. Before today's program can begin, I just have to quickly correct myself. During the conversation with FilmFanPete on today's program, I accidentally referred to Chloe Maurice Mortez by the wrong name. I am in fact aware of who I was referring to, so I do apologize for my mistake, and I hope you enjoy today's show.
It's DVDM here from YouTube, and you're listening to my good friend Raz from the Raz Man's Reality Show, brought to you by Geeky.com, when it's just not geeky enough, on Audio Graded and Channel 107.
The Raz Man's Reality Radio Show is on the air for another week in your ear. I, of course, am your host, The Raz Man, and I apologize in advance if today's session features any background noise. Joining me this week, it is my honor to welcome to the show a first-time guest, the one and only YouTube's FilmFanPete is in the house. How are you, man?
I'm great. How are you doing, man?
I am very good. It's so good to finally have you. We've been trying to get this done for about a month, and it's good to actually have you on the show. So thank you.
Absolutely. I so appreciate you having me. It's great.
Well, the first thing I always like to try and do for first-time guests is to let our audience know, for anybody that isn't subscribed to you and doesn't know what it is that you do on YouTube, to give you the chance to sort of explain yourself. So just talk about who you are, what it is that you do, you know, what sort of your YouTube mission is, for lack of a better way to put it.
Absolutely. No, I like that phrase. Well, I have a channel on YouTube called FilmFanPete, and it's been on for about 9 months, and it's getting more successful by the day. I'm happy with it so far, and what I do is I do Blu-ray disc reviews and unboxing and kind of showcase new releases. I work with a lot of the studios, Warner Brothers, Sony, 20th Century Fox, a lot of different studios getting titles in advance to, review for my subscribers. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, that is a lot of fun, and you've actually reached out to different people like me who have asked you, how did you get those Blu-ray titles in advance? So hopefully a few more of us will be able to take advantage of that, because that was a pretty cool thing that I'd not seen on a lot of channels, and to me that's part of what made you stand out, was the fact that you got films before anyone else had a chance to get a hold of them. I thought that was a really cool thing. And, it definitely helps with your view count, I'm sure, because people see reviews on your channel way before they would see it anywhere else. I mean, that has to feel pretty cool.
It feels great, and that's totally true. I don't think if I would have, reached out to the distributors and the studios and done that I'd have nearly as many subscribers as I do, because I think it is cool, and I think it's something that, as a film buff and someone who loves high definition and Blu-ray, just the format in general, it's a lot of fun. I always like to see, titles in advance and see what people thought on different review sites. And, what really inspired me, there's actually a YouTuber named Blue Collection, BLU Collection, and he would often get titles early, and I don't think he worked with any studios, but he would just somehow obtain them early from stores, and he still does, and he's great, and he would showcase them, and I just thought that was so cool, and kind of inspired me to do something similar.
Well, that's cool, because you've already accomplished part of what we were trying to do here and create the crossover audience, because I had never heard of his channel. So as soon as we're done here, I'm going to go give him a new subscriber, because he sounds pretty cool.
He's great. He's a great guy. I mean, we talk quite a bit and, box each other's channels and all that. And he's kind of I kind of call him the king of the unboxing, because he does it so well. The up close details and everything on the inside of different packages and titles. And that's when I saw that, and I had never really seen that before. It was one of my first people I subscribed to when I came on, and I thought, wow, I like seeing that. I like seeing what's inside before, it comes out in stores. So yeah, it was cool. He's a great guy.
Exactly. Well, that is cool. And, unboxing seems to be like a hit or miss thing. And for me, I could never really accomplish it, because of my physical limitation. I really had struggled with the packaging, because a lot of time they do such a good job protecting the product that it takes like 10 minutes to get it open.
Oh, absolutely. I totally hear you. And then it's, since some titles are easier than others and some, you get the plastic kind of just won't come off and you have to kind of scrape it off. So.
And there's something actually really bad that happened to me with my recent pickup. I haven't had a chance to tell you this, and I'm so excited to actually be able to do this on the air with you. But if you remember, I was so excited when you reviewed Hugo, and I told you how badly that I wanted to pick that up. Well, I actually did get to. So
you got it. You picked it up?
Yeah, I did. So
what did you think?
it was an absolutely amazing film. I mean, it met every one of my expectations and succeeded them.
Absolutely.
On top of it. It was Martin Scorsese, it's like he just started making films yesterday. I mean, the guy could make films till the day he dies, and I hope he does, because he hasn't lost a step at all.
Absolutely, and that's the amazing thing about that movie, because he really had never made a movie like that before. He's such a great director. We've seen, the Mafia movies. We've seen these dark stories from him, but to see a family film and one that incorporated film history into it, like George Méliès and The Trip to the Moon, I mean, that was the special thing about it for me. Just, what a great film. I thought it was.
Yeah, and the fact that it's also based on a book, too. Like, I didn't know that until I watched the special features on the film, and now I want to go and pick up that book as well.
Yeah, totally. I do too. I actually never I got to read that either. I've seen it's a pretty thick book. Yeah, The Invention of Hugo Cabret. So.
Yeah, but Hugo is a tremendous film. So, if anybody was on the fence about it, because for whatever reason, and this is something I definitely want to cover with you, but I want to get back around to finishing my story real quick first. But for whatever reason, people, when it comes to being a critic and actually being quote-unquote paid critic and getting paid to do what they do, they criticize everything for no reason at all. And Hugo got a lot of bad reviews and a lot of bad ratings. And I think that's why it didn't last in the cinema for very long. And I think that's why, honestly, in my opinion, that's the reason that it didn't win Best Picture. Because I thought it was a far better picture than The Artist. I mean, don't get me wrong, The Artist is a great film, and it was definitely a wonderful thing to see the return to the silent film genre and see it done so well, nearly, 30, 40 years since we've seen something like that. But in terms of what the best picture of this cycle of Academy Awards was, I thought it was Hugo, hands down.
Absolutely,
so I was really disappointed in that.
Yeah, they both had magic in them, but Hugo just had that magic, especially if you're a lover of film and a film aficionado that you just kind of adored, whereas The Artist was a unique thing, but it wasn't as magical.
Yeah, and another thing that film proved, and I'm sure you agree, is that Chloe Reese Davies is going to be the next great actress of our time. I mean, that girl at such a young age, she has not done a bad film, and she's arguably carried every single film she's ever been in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she was, one second, okay. My daughter's trying to talk to me. But, she was, amazing and let me in. That was the first time I think I saw her in anything, and then I saw her in, Kick-Ass, of course, and,
yeah, I was the reverse. I saw Kick-Ass first, and I saw Let Me In.
Did you? Yeah, I had to go back and watch it because I had heard so many great things about that one. But to see her in Hugo, she's gonna grow up to be the next Meryl Streep or just a very classy actress. She's very talented.
Yeah, I mean the things that she does at that young of an age, it blows your mind away to think there's that kind of talent already. She's carrying films. Like, wait until the Academy just can't ignore her anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if she's one of the youngest actresses ever to win an Oscar. I definitely think she has it in her to do it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. She could pull I think it was Anna Paquin was even younger than she is when she was nominated for, or maybe did she win for The Piano? I can't remember, but she was even younger than her, so she's years on her for sure. She'll be definitely successful.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful film. And, you touched on it too, the family element of things. We don't get a lot of good family live action films anymore. Everything is stuck in the animated genre when it comes to a film that the entire family and all ages can sit down and see. So Hugo just had everything working for it, and I enjoyed it so well. But anyway, my original point was, before we got into another mini review of Hugo, was we were talking about unboxing, at the beginning of the convo, and I was saying that unfortunately when I got Hugo and I took all that cellophane wrap and stuff off, the slipcase on the one side of the spine lost its glue. So it's like barely hanging together, and I hate that because you can't not use your slipcase. I mean, the slipcase is part of the selling point of the Blu-ray set.
Exactly.
So it's like I'm like panicked because I don't know what to do because that's a different type of glue that they use on slipcovers. You can't just like glue that back together on your own. I wouldn't think.
Yeah, I don't think so too. I think you're right. It's kind of a special thing they use in the in the factory process. But that's a bummer. I hate to mess up packaging. Actually, I did the box set of Willy Wonka Blu-ray a long time ago. Warner Brothers sent that to me, and in the video you can see me rip off the packaging because it had this little piece of like a circle piece of tape holding the digipack together, and I rip it off right on camera, and I kind of missed it when I did it because I was kind of trying to concentrate on doing the video. But one of the number one comments on that one was, "Oh man, you ripped the packaging. Oh man," people get so
right. And that's almost an advantage to just skipping straight to reviews like I do, is if you do mess something like that up, you can explain the story after the fact, and you don't have the embarrassing moment caught on camera for the world to see.
Exactly. Right.
But it just, I really appreciate the studios taking care of the product, but it's just getting ridiculous. I mean, you don't need to wrap these discs up like they're Fort Knox, especially Blu-ray discs, because they're anti-scratch resistant to begin with.
Right, yeah, it doesn't have to be that. It's, I always prefer that, the kind of packaging that does not even have the folded top or bottom. You just rip it right off and you're good to go. That's kind of one thing I love about the Criterion Collection Blu-rays. They always just have a little slit down the back and you can just peel it right off. It's very easy.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And I wish more companies would be like Criterion. But one of the things I wanted to get into with you, because we sort of kind of touched on it during Hugo, is what is your opinion on the state of film these days? Because to me, there aren't a lot of great directors left in Hollywood, and I don't know if that's so much a reflection on their skill as directors as much as it is who's ever in charge of studios they're like these stuffed suits that don't have a clue what a good film is, and they think, oh, well, we're just gonna, throw a 10-minute script on screen and make it 3D and people are going to go watch it. I mean, it's a very rare thing unless you're watching Christopher Nolan, J.J. Abrams, David Fincher, Scorsese when he still makes a film. People like that, unless you're watching those kind of people, you go into the cinema and you pretty much prepare yourself to be disappointed because you don't have great films anymore. And I want to know your opinion on that. And do you think it's our responsibility somewhat as lifelong film buffs and the platform that we have with online now to sort of educate the younger generation as to what a good film is, because they're sort of being brainwashed with subpar stuff these days?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. I think you hit the nail on the head there, because it is that way, and it's something that's every generation is going to be different. They're going to have their different likes and their different tastes. But everything, like you said, is 3D now, and everything is, just a big money fest. They're just throwing money at these directors, especially directors that don't really have an established track record. I mean, brand new directors, instead of putting that into someone who has shown off their talents, like Darren Aronofsky, for example, is a director I absolutely adore.
Requiem so do I, yes. And you said the number one film that someone needs to say when they say his name too, Requiem for a Dream.
Absolutely. I mean, movies like that, and I thought a highly underrated movie, and of course I'm probably not going to be able to think about it, but The Fountain. He really, movies that a lot of money was not pumped into, and
of course Black Swan the last couple of years.
Exactly. And I think it's very true. I think there's a handful of really, really quality directors working today, and unfortunately everything else, it seems like the first guy or job that, the music video director that wants to branch out into Hollywood gets is this big 3D production, and they just can't, concentrate on making quality anymore.
No, they can't. And, it's one of those things that drives me up a wall. The reason that Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, was a success in the box office is because it was presenting us with technology for 3D that we'd never seen before. And it was the use of the technology that made the film a success, not the fact that the tech was attached to the film, because the film itself, if you watch the film on its own merit, it's honestly not very good. I mean, to me, it's like Pocahontas in space, or another comparison would be Dances with Wolves in space. I mean, it's a story that we have seen hundreds of times before, and without ever seeing it in cinema, I was one of those people that waited to Blu-ray to see it, and I don't have a 3D TV yet, and even the 3D Avatar isn't even out yet. I don't think it comes out till later this year, which is just James Cameron being a money hog anyway. But my point is, just watching that in 2D, I thought, what in the world are people so gaga about? And then I did the research, and I realized that, James Cameron was using all new 3D technology, and the film was really tailored toward 3D. And then I thought, well, considering the beauty and scenery on Pandora, that makes a lot of sense that this film would look great in 3D. But the negative thing that happened with it being such a huge success, the studios saw low box office numbers, and instead of realizing that it's from directors not getting good scripts to work with, or it's directors that don't know what they're doing and not hiring the right people, which is actually the case. They thought, it's because our films are in 2D. People need 3D as the next big thing to give themselves a reason not to sit at home and watch a film at home. And that was a huge mistake, and I think that film is still suffering for it, because with the exception of stuff that's computer animated, which is real easy and really well done in 3D, I think that 3D hurts a film more than it does help it, especially when you post-convert it. When you take something like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is the biggest example I can think of, that was already shot and finished, and you post-convert the image to 3D because you think that's what you're supposed to do. What you're actually doing is messing with the depth perception of the film. So, what's your opinion on that? Do you pull your hair out over that as much as I do?
You know what? Here's the thing. I mean, I think that 3D, as you know, 3D was huge in the 50s. It kind of, movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon, a lot of the old horror films really, made use of it. And now it's had this huge, comeback. And people, when it first came out, the first year, I'm talking like Avatar and movies like that came out and kind of pioneered it, for reuse again. It took off, and people said, it's just a fad, it'll go away. But here we are. I mean, a few years later, we still have all these 3D movies coming out. And so obviously it's something that I think, people, especially younger generations, are really crazy about seeing. I think they like the experience of watching a movie in 3D. But the ticket prices are always ridiculous. And it really, like you kind of said, you made a point of it being, I mean, it depends on what it is, what kind of, how are you using 3D in a film? Because in a movie like Hugo, it was amazing to see that kind of 3D in the theater, because it totally made sense and it worked for the film. You had a master director at the helm, kind of making it unique and work for that. But other movies that are post-converted, like you said, like the Clash of the Titans remake, totally post-converted to 3D, and one of the worst 3D presentations ever. So
yeah, and I think that's, just something that gets lost that we just need to hammer home here, is that it's one thing if you're using the technology when you're making the film. If you're tailoring the film to use the 3D technology, then there's probably going to be a reason that you want to see it in 3D. And something as visual as Hugo, I can't wait until 3D home technology is perfected and I can get that on 3D Blu-ray, because I know for a fact, like you said, that's going to be amazing because it's all about the visuals. But what really bothers me is that when it's already basically done, the film, and they just, they try and change it and make it into something and it's not to try to make it 3D, and that's what causes a bad presentation, and it really hurts my eyes. It makes me dizzy when I have to go and put those 3D glasses on my head and I'm not seeing a picture that's worth seeing.
Exactly. You know what's funny? My wife and I got but one of the only special screenings I had in advance, because I really don't get to do the whole pre-theatrical release thing like a lot of reviewers on YouTube. I just do the Blu-ray thing. But a couple of years ago, whenever it came out, I think it was a couple of years ago, but the Green Hornet Seth Rogen version.
Yeah.
Tickets to that, and we knew it was, going into it that it was post-converted 3D, and just to expect that. And we were kind of a test audience to see what we thought about it. And I remember throughout the entire movie, my wife and I both were taking off our glasses and putting them back on because we were trying to figure out what on earth was 3D about it, because it had no pop. It had nothing was sticking out of the screen like a movie that was actually filmed in 3D. And so it was a disappointing experience. And then the funny thing is, the very last sequence in the movie, the actual end credit sequence, the Green Hornet came out of the screen and was kind of floating in front of the audience, and that was the only part that was made to be 3D. So, it wasn't worth it. And why sit there with glasses on for a 2-hour and 10-minute movie?
Exactly, and it's funny you mentioned the superhero genre with the Green Hornet, because, the other one that was exactly like that was Thor. I was forced to see Thor in 3D because on the day that I wanted to go, because I had a cousin in town that doesn't live here in Ohio with me. He was here from out of state for our family reunion. So one of our traditions, because he's a cinephile too, we pick 3 movies that are playing while he's here, and we go see 3 films in one day in cinema. And it's always a blast. But Thor was one that we picked, and the only way to fit it around the other 2 films that we saw that day, which were 2 other great films. I mean, we saw 3 great films because Thor is still a great film, but I'll get into that in a minute. I don't want to get off my point here, but we saw Thor, Pirates of the Caribbean, On Stranger Tides, and X-Men First Class. And the only way that we could fit in Thor was to do Thor first around what the cinema schedule was that day because of the length of Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, just like every other Pirates movie, is a fairly long film.
Sure,
so, we were forced to watch it in 3D, and I did that exact same thing the whole time. I was sitting there without my glasses on because I'm like, I haven't seen anything here that's like making me think, oh, this is in 3D. And the only shot that was that way was when Thor's father cast the hammer out of Isengard and takes it to Earth. That was the only shot that, jumped out at me like, oh, that's kind of cool. But just knowing that it was post-converted, and that film was living proof of post-conversion. So, bottom line is, unless you shoot something that way, please just don't put it in 3D. It doesn't need 3D. And it's not just cinephiles like us saying that, because look at the numbers. We talked about Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, so I go back to that. If you look at the numbers for that while it was in the cinema, 70% of the people that saw that film saw it in 2D. Which tells you that the audience is smart, and they know the difference between something that is made to be seen in 3D and something that isn't. Absolutely. So hopefully that's a sign, being Harry Potter and being how big it is and how important a franchise it is to the history of cinema. Hopefully studios will look at that and be like, wow, if people didn't go and see the end of a franchise that they've been waiting 10 years for in 3D, maybe this 3D thing isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It totally makes sense.
Yeah. So, on the subject of great films and the difference between a great film and a subpar one, other than the films that everybody is going to be talking about from this year, like Hugo, Tree of Life, The Artist, what was the one film that you saw that you think is going to be severely underappreciated that you want to recommend the audience sees?
Oh, wow. It's a great question. So films from 2011 that were underrated?
Yeah.
There was a movie last year called Terry. It's Terri, and it was from 20th Century Fox. and it starred John C. Reilly, and I think his name is Jacob Wasaki. He was a new actor, new to the scene. But it was a very well done film and highly underrated. I mean, it got good reviews, but it was an independent film like a lot of those movies, and it did not get a lot of theatrical showings. It was very limited to release, but it's a great film. It's a kind of an outcast in high school who lives with his uncle who's suffering from Alzheimer's, and the only real friend he can make at school is the assistant principal. And so it's a very quirky, kind of dark comedy, but just a very well done film. So that's the one movie from last year.
That sounds pretty cool. That sounds almost like Napoleon Dynamite, Kick-Ass kind of feel, and I love those kind of movies.
Yeah, it's a lot, it's not as, slapsticky at all. It's just very straightforward, little bit of comedy, more quirky, kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen a movie called Ghost World, or I've seen, some of, trying to think of what even to compare it to. It's just kind of a quiet film, like a humble film in its own quirkiness, but I liked it.
Very cool. Well, I will definitely have to check that out. Speaking of the superhero genre, what is your opinion on 2012? Because to me, 2012 is the year of superhero films, and of course ending with fantasy and Hollywood. But when you look at 2012, you've got the Amazing Spider-Man, you've got the Avengers, and then you have The Dark Knight Rises. That, to me, is the year of the superhero film. Are us geeks finally going to be able to truly celebrate, because the Academy is going to be forced to recognize the superhero film as Best Picture this year? To me, they're not going to have a choice when you stack it up to what else we have on the ledger for 2012.
Right. No, I hear you. I think that, number one, I mean, yeah, this is the year for, superhero and comic book fans of the movies. It's a great year. You got the first, full Avengers film, and it's Joss Whedon. It's going to be, I'm sure it'll be a blast. Again, Dark Knight Rises is a great year for superhero fans. As far as the Academy recognizing either of those films, I think the only one that may have a chance would be Dark Knight Rises. And I say that because it's the third film. It's the last film supposedly that Christopher Nolan is willing to do. The end of the trilogy kind of reminds me of, Lord of the Rings. They finally honored Lord of the Rings with the third film.
Yeah, well, there was the exception of the late great Heath Ledger winning the most deserving supporting actor Oscar in the last 10 years, in my opinion.
That's very true.
For The Dark Knight.
Very true. Yeah.
There was the exception for that. But the reason I say that is because I just look at this calendar year, and The Hobbit is going to be out after the Oscar year has passed. It's not going to be out till December, or maybe that's like at the tail end of the Oscar year. To be honest, it keeps changing, so I always lose track of these things. But my point was, when you have The Amazing Spider-Man, The Dark Knight Rises, and The Avengers, those are going to be the films that give you the most numbers, and those are going to be the films that people talk about from the Oscar season this year. So I just don't see what else is out there right now that I know about that could be in a front line for Best Picture, in my opinion.
You mean like that should be coming out this year in 2012?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to tell in the spring. I think so many of the movies that were up for Best Picture this year came out in the last quarter of last year.
That is true. This was the latest Oscar nomination season I can remember in a long time.
It really was, and it was one of those that I never even met. So many YouTubers made their top 10 of 2011 videos. I saw those all over towards the end of the year, and I never made one, and simply because I didn't get a chance to go to the theater a lot. I watched most of the movies at home that I reviewed.
Well, I'm the same way. I haven't seen everything from 2011 that I need to see in order to make that list. My list is always one of the last ones up because I don't get to the cinema a lot, and that's another thing that I want to get into after the break, is there's a reason that I don't go to the cinema a lot. I'm sure that you'll agree with it when I get into it, but don't feel bad as far as that goes, because there's plenty of people that are late to the game that just see it in home theater. So if you still want to do it, by all means do it, because I'm sure it'll be really interesting. And I know Civilian Snowman, who is in England, he and I always do it around the same time every year, which is actually the summer of the next year.
Oh, that's awesome. I think it is a good idea. I may still yet do one, because now that most of the movies, from the last quarter have come out on Blu-ray and DVD, I think I finally could do my top 10. So, anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are going to go ahead and take our pause for station identification, but when we get back from the break, we'll have more with FilmFanPete, and this is the Raz Man's Reality Radio Show.
Hey, what's up? This is YouTube's FilmFanPete, and you're listening to my pal Raz here in the Raz Man's Reality Radio Show, brought to you by Geeky.com, but it's just not geeky enough, on audio graded and channel 107.
You are back right here on the Raz Man's Reality Radio Show. The Raz Man, pleased to be joined by YouTuber FilmFanPete this week. Thanks again for being here, Pete.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It's great.
And one of the things that I wanted to get into, because we started talking about a tiny bit before the break, is there's a reason that a lot of people like you and me are sort of late to the game when it comes to seeing a lot of film these days. And that's because the price of tickets in the cinema just don't justify the experience anymore. I mean, you're spending $7 for a matinee ticket. That's a matinee, let alone going after 5 p.m. at night. And then on top of that, you gotta buy your popcorn, your candy, depending on how many people are going. So you're spending a minimum of $20 to $25 if you go by yourself. And then if you throw extra people in there, I mean, you're talking like a whole paycheck for one trip to the cinema. So to me, if I'm going to spend that kind of money, if I'm going to spend $20, $25 on a day going to the cinema, why don't I just wait for the Blu-ray to come out? Because a lot of Blu-rays are that same price. Or, if they're on sale, I can get 2 for that price. And not only can I see a great film, but I can keep it forever.
Exactly.
I can watch it whenever I want.
Yeah, high definition. I mean, I agree, and it's it's one of those things that, it is. It's too expensive nowadays, and I know it'll probably only get worse. But it is. It's a rare thing that my wife and I do go out. And a lot of that is because we got little kiddos at home, and it's tough to actually make the weekend time for that sometimes. So it's just easier to pop in a flick. But a lot, like you said, a lot of it is also the prices. I mean, when you it's $19 on a Friday night plus a $15 package with a popcorn and 2 pops. It ends up being just a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, to me, it with the advances of Blu-ray and the fact that we finally have a home format that is like the cinema experience, that is 1080p, it just doesn't, you don't miss a lot when you wait and you watch it on your high definition screen at home. You don't miss a lot. And the biggest thing, especially for fathers like you and parents in general, is you don't have to deal with the little ones going out and getting grumpy and tired, and then dealing with other little ones that are also there screaming. I mean, if your film gets interrupted, you can start the experience again the next day. I mean, there's just more advantages, I think, to the home theater experience these days.
Absolutely, that's a huge advantage, and that's why I think I do love it as much as I do. I mean, I've always collected movies, and since the days of VHS, I've had different collections. But especially now, being a dad and working and doing wearing many hats, juggling a lot of different things, it's just so much easier to pop in a flick and be able to come back to it later. I totally agree with you.
Right, but it's also a great thing when you get a film like Hugo that when you first see it, you know that you're not going to be able to interrupt that setting because it engrosses you so much that you're like, I have to know how this film ends. It makes the treat even more rare, in my opinion. So in this day and age, to me, there has to be a reason to go and see a film in the cinema. Like the 3 films to me that scream. I talked about 2 of them, The Dark Knight Rises and The Avengers. And not just because I'm a superhero fan, but because Batman is my number 1 favorite superhero of all time. And also because Joss Whedon is one of my favorite directors of all time. I'm a Whedon head through and through. Like, I don't know how far back in my videos that you have gone to, Pete, but if you go back, you can see that I actually did episode by episode reviews on Dollhouse Season 1 back when it was airing, because I wanted so badly for that show to succeed. And
That's
and
awesome.
it took me a long time to get season 2, but the season 2 reviews are finally coming in April, and that ironically ended up being something that I just want to do for myself, because I felt like, I was using my platform that I had at the time to try and get, I figured if I could get 10 people to watch the show, I'd be helping its ratings, and it went from that into arguably the most popular thing I've ever done.
That's
it
great.
was pretty cool. But yeah, I'm a big Whedon head, and I've always wanted him to get the opportunity from somebody to show his talents and not be held back by a network. And there couldn't be a more perfect film for him than The Avengers, because he is a lifelong superhero fan and has written a lot of comic books himself as well.
Right.
So this is a perfect fit for him, and I could not be more excited to see this film. And his career just needs to go to the level where it's deserved to be for the last 15 years.
Everything I hear about him, I think that rings true. And I did not. I kind of grew up, when the Buffy the Vampire show was airing, but I never watched it. I've seen a couple episodes now as an adult, but I never really got too into it. And it wasn't because I didn't like it, it's just because I didn't have the time. But I did really get into Firefly.
Oh yeah, Firefly is amazing, and Dollhouse is the one that came after Firefly, and it's just as good. Like, seriously, if you haven't seen Dollhouse, I can't recommend that enough. If you take away one thing from this conversation, see Dollhouse. Go and pick up those season sets, because you got 13 episodes per each season. So, you can get it done arguably in 2 days if you don't have a lot of interruptions. And it will be one of the best times you'd ever spend. I guarantee you.
Oh, I'll definitely take your recommendation. I've heard so many great things about it. It's one of those recommendations you get all the time that I just keep on putting on the back burner, but I'll put it on the front burner because I do want to see it. For sure.
Very, very cool. Yeah. And they also did a 6-part comic series. The first comic comes in the season 2 Blu-ray set, and then there's 5 more that you can pick up. So if you really end up loving the show, like I'm hoping you will, you can also pick up the graphic novels as well. And that's one thing I didn't get a chance to ask you about. A lot of us cinephiles also have the crossover into the comic book world, because we just grew up being geeks and liking all things art form. So are you a big comic reader as well?
I was when I was younger. I was really into the X-Men series. I mean, and what actually, I have to be honest, what got me into wanting to read comic books was the X-Men, the animated series from the 90s. That's what I must have been 9 when that started airing. And
You're not the only person I've ever met who said that. That was a tremendous series.
Yeah, it was. It was an amazing show, especially at that age, and that's what made me go, oh wow, there's a whole other kind of world out there to explore in comics, and I started getting into that, and what else? Spawn, various different ones. I have not read comic books in many years though, and I wish I did still, but I just haven't done it. I'm very out of the loop when it comes to current comics.
Well, did you enjoy The Watchmen? Zack Snyder's Watchmen film?
I did, and I have read that graphic novel. So
I was going to say, because that's a perfect example of what a graphic novel can do. If you haven't read one in a long time, that's what made that film so great, was because it had such amazing source material. And the Walking Dead series on A&E, there's another perfect example. The Walking Dead series of graphic novels are just, they're unbelievable. There's so much work being put into graphic novels. There's honestly better work being put into graphic novels than there is film. I mean, we talked about it, the sad state of film, earlier on in the program. And to be honest, like, if you want the experience that you used to have with film, start reading graphic novels. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, if you want to talk to me, or search out fellow YouTubers who actually spend a lot of time on their graphic novel collection. Like, I absolutely would, but I don't have the space to display it. And
Sure.
I don't want to be doing a lot of reviews if I'm just showing, like, one book at a time. Maybe that's just a personal hang-up that I need to get over, because some people have said that they want me to do those kind of reviews. But
Absolutely.
my point is, I can't recommend it to you enough. Like, seriously, if you're as disenchanted as what you just said you were about some of the films we see today, give graphic novel reading a chance, because it's not for little kids anymore. A lot of these books are extremely dark, and, you know, they took a lesson from stuff like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings that we all love to read, and the only difference is it's like animated panels across the screen.
Right, absolutely.
Or across the page, sorry.
No, that's good. I mean, I definitely, if I, get around to that, for sure, would check some of that stuff out. I've read, some Frank Miller stuff, and, the kind of the basis for Sin City, and, what was the Frank Miller, Batman in the Dark Knight, or Legend of the...
Yeah, it's, well, Frank Miller did a lot of iconic Batman books, but I think the one you're thinking about is The Dark Knight Returns.
Yes. So, I mean, I have read some of those a long time ago. Again, probably, mid-90s and late, 90s.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely something worth picking up again as an adult, because I guarantee you that I have a deeper appreciation for it. I mean, I've been reading comics on and off since I was a kid, but it wasn't until I was like 16 that I got really hardcore into it, which tells you how much the culture changed and how much they really started writing real novels. I mean, the term graphic novel, that's exactly what it is. It's just a novel, but with, cool pictures to look at instead of just being page after page of written word.
Yeah, man, that sounds great, for sure. Definitely. It's something, I do find myself, with the state of film, as we were talking about earlier, watching so many of the classics now, especially with Blu-ray, and we have these incredible remasters and restorations done by the studios. It's great to get into classic cinema in a time when there's not as much great being released in theaters. So
yeah, well, speaking of that, that's a perfect jump off point. It's amazing how in sync we're becoming, because this is literally your first appearance on the radio show, and a little secret out of the bag here, it's actually the first time we've been able to talk one-on-one other than messaging. So it's it's amazing how well we're actually clicking here, because you just segued right into the next thing I was going to segue into, is that one of the things that really irritates me so much that I see on YouTube in the form of comments, or I see in reviews or wherever, is I see so many people saying, what's the point of putting old films on Blu-ray? They're not even HD. There's nothing more irritating in life to me in this day and age than somebody that doesn't realize that film is 10,000 times greater than 1080p as far as visual quality source. Yeah. So for people to say that old films, there's no point in having them on Blu-ray, they're uneducated, for one, and two, they're blind. I mean, you look at stuff like Raging Bull, Casablanca, The Godfather. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm sure there's others you can throw out there as well, but
yes,
Blu-ray saved classic films, and it brought classic films to an entire generation. But, just speak briefly on the people that aren't educated. Like, doesn't that really bother you? Like, don't you have to get into arguments all the time with people that just don't understand what high definition is?
It's a good
supposed to be?
Right. I mean, I try to avoid them, but it's something that it's absolutely true. You do get a lot. I do hear that a lot, because I do cover a lot of classics. It's really my fascination with Blu-ray is not, the amazing new movies and how great they looked. I mean, they look great in the theater. They look great on Blu-ray. It's not a surprise. To me, the surprise is watching classic films that I've only seen on, scratched up VHS tapes, and I've seen on, 16 millimeter film rolls, and see them totally restored, not, with no digital noise reduction and grain intact, to be blown up on Blu-ray and look that amazing. That to me is what Blu-ray is all about.
Exactly. I mean, but you said about this DNR and keeping the grain intact. Like, one of the things I get all the time that just, it's so beyond words irritating is people say, why is this film so grainy? I thought Blu-ray was supposed to remove the grain.
Yep.
You know, people don't understand that film grain actually creates the image that you're seeing on film. Like, if you take the grain out, you have no detail whatsoever.
And that's the thing. I don't think that, I think it's, you know, again, I hate to chalk it up to this, but I think a lot of it is just a generational difference and the lack of knowledge about that because, you know, it's exactly right. There's film has film grain. I mean, it's part of what film is. And it's not that, you know, DNR, which for those listening that don't know what that is, it's digital noise reduction, was not invented. It wasn't thought up as a bad thing. It was thought up as a good thing. It was meant to reduce digital noise, originally on DVD transfers and Laserdisc transfers, and now it's still used on Blu-ray. But the problem is when you use it too much, when you overuse DNR, when you're transferring a film onto a format, when you're trying to clean it up, it removes film grain. And so, like, you know, Raz Man said here, it takes out the detail in things. And one of the prime examples of bad DNR, in high definition is Predator with Arnold.
Oh God, yes.
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 And it's one of those that you can look up online on Blu-ray.com and, you know, various websites. DVD Beaver have screenshot comparisons between the original Blu-ray release, because there's been two, and what's called the Ultimate Hunter Edition, I think, was the second release that had a ridiculous amount of DNR applied. And Arnold Schwarzenegger goes from looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger to this kind of pink, pasty, perfect, being. it's really as noticeable as it gets. And that's the funny thing about it, is that a lot of people, look at the new image, the second release with all the DNR applied, and they think it looks better. They think it looks like a new film. And that argument can be made for that, for those people that think it does look.
Yeah, it can somewhat, but when you look at Predator, there's no detail. It looks like they're waxy figures. I cannot fathom how someone thinks that's a better image.
Right, it does. It looks like, Madame Tussauds Wax Museum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about that particular edition, I can't not give a shout out to one of my closest and oldest friends there in Isaac, Sean McLean, because I don't know if you're aware, Pete, or you've seen it, but he actually did one of the most popular rants in YouTube film history on that edition, and he called it, I want to say, I can't remember the exact title, but it was something along the effects of my thoughts on the ultimate Predator DNR edition. Or something to that effect. And it's just one of the funniest and truest things that will ever see in your life. Like, seriously, when you're done here, or next time you have time, go and search his channel for that video. You will die.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to watching that. I've seen his channel. I'm a subscriber of his, but I have not seen that particular one. I would love to see what he has to say about it.
Yeah, have you ever watched his HD rants, too? I mean, that's the guy who really knows what he's talking about with HD and really tries to do a good job anyway of educating people about what HD is supposed to be. I mean, he did a whole episode on there where he was like, why are Blu-rays filmed so grainy?
Right.
And he was like holding his head and awesome people like Darren Isaac are what's keeping film alive today, I think. So, yeah, shout out to you, buddy, if you're listening. Hope you are. But, yeah, hearing you talk about that edition, I could not mention that video. But, yeah, there's that, and there's also an unfortunate other example of it is Terminator 2. We're still waiting for a proper edition of Terminator 2.
Yeah, they did. They kind of, with that release, on the first edition, it was, underwhelming, and the second release was overwhelming. it just was, they could not find a perfect in between with that. So that is a bummer. So, it had all the special features I wanted to see on it, but it just did not have the best picture. So.
Yeah. I don't understand why they can't do for it what they did for Gladiator and realize that, yeah, we went too far with the DNRing we can give people the Blu-ray that they want, and not only can we give people the Blu-ray that they want, but hey, let's do refunds and let's give people the good transfer for free. I mean, I wish every studio would be like Universal was for Gladiator. Like, I stood up and applaud, well, not stood up because that would be physically impossible, but, metaphorically stood up and applauded them for doing that. I mean, I've never seen that done before, and I hope that that's a standard that every studio adopts now, is like realizing that they screwed something up and they have to fix it.
Absolutely, and that's, I think in the age of Blu-ray, because it's so picture quality centric, I think more studios are becoming aware of that. Because when DVD and was in its heyday, editions would get released and re-released. We'd have these double and triple dips, and they would either fix things or they wouldn't, and they didn't really, listen as much to the fans. But I do see a lot more studios nowadays in Blu-ray, correcting their mistakes. There was the recent Halloween 2 Blu-ray release. I'm not sure if you're a Halloween series fan, but
I can't really enjoy horror, not because horror is not a great genre. Some of the greatest films in the history of the world are horror, but my cerebral palsy doesn't allow me to enjoy it because I jump at every little thing every 5 seconds.
Yeah. No, that's totally understandable. And that's, but the Blu-ray release of Halloween 2 had, left out producer Mustafa Akkad's name in the credits. And so they just replaced it, completely. It did not say, produced by Mustafa Akkad, but Universal right away, was able to, reissue that Blu-ray release and apologize and got a new one out. And so I do see a lot more, accountability on their part.
Well, and it's a great thing to see, and it's also studios standing up. Like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but are you a big Star Trek fan?
I'm a huge Star Trek fan.
I was absolutely being sarcastic, and he knows it, because one of the very first conversations we had was over the new Star Trek The Next Level set that's out for the next generation. So I hope he caught on to the fact that I was joking with you.
I did, totally.
But, did you see the idiotic reviews on Amazon by the people that saying, what is with these ugly black bars? This isn't real HD. I thought this was supposed to be high definition and stuff like that. And one of the greatest things that happened is that Paramount actually did a press release telling those idiots that no, Star Trek The Next Generation was shot 4:3 and intended to be seen on a 4:3 television when it was made. If we made the image widescreen, we'd be stretching out the image and distorting it. So we're not going to do that. And if studio is doing that, then that's actually a studio standing up and educating people. And I hope that's a sign for a great future ahead, seeing something like that.
Absolutely. That's huge, and I think it is. I think it's a matter of getting, just educating people. And whenever I hear that, I'm always quick to point out, being the film fanatic I am, the misconception that everything is widescreen or everything fills up the screen. There shouldn't be black bars in the top or bottom or on the sides. Because people do get confused when they watch movies years before HD. When Casablanca was on TV, it was full screen. When a movie is epic as, let me think here for a second, Forrest Gump, which is a widescreen, huge CinemaScope release, right? When that was released on TV, it was full screen. With the invention of the, HDTV and everything, all of it, people get really confused when they see those black bars, and they just have to know that it's all about aspect ratio, and it's all about preserving the image. So,
Exactly, and unfortunately it doesn't stop with 4:3 versus 16:9. It also happens with anamorphic versus the other types of widescreen, because I actually had a cousin, I'll keep him nameless because he might be listening and I don't want him being too mad at me right now, but I actually had him a couple of weeks ago when we were watching one of the Harry Potter films. I want to say it was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, or possibly Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I don't exactly remember which one it was, but we were watching it on my high definition flat screen, and he was saying, that's not true 1080p, is it? And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, look, you can see the black bars there on the top and bottom of the screen. And I said, no, that's because it wasn't shot in 16:9 widescreen for television. It was shot on widescreen for film. So it's made to have a bigger screen, and they actually just didn't chop off the source image and fit it to the TV, because if they did that, they'd be distorting the image. And he's smart enough at that point to say, oh, you know, he's not going to argue with me and say, well, that's dumb and that's stupid.
Right.
But it's an unfortunate thing, because I don't think studios did well enough when HD took off the way it did. I don't think that enough people were educated to the level they should have been. I think they should know never ever to stretch out their image on screen. There's nothing worse. And even a lot of networks do it. Like Cartoon Network is a huge example, which I'm sure you know fully well because you have little kids. So I'm sure Cartoon Network is on a lot in your house. But everything that they show now, they show in 16:9 widescreen format. And stuff in 4:3 gets all stretched out and distorted, and it's so horrible to see and so irritating.
Absolutely. And one of my biggest pet peeves, and you know, I don't see it as much anymore, but I would a lot, you know, growing up, is the pan and scan. You know, that process of, you know, showing an entire widescreen image by focusing on like either the left or the right hand side of that image and then panning across so you could get the full picture on a 4:3 TV. And it looked so silly, and it would just be, you'd leave out, I mean, you weren't getting the full picture at all, but they would make it worse by not just cutting off the frames, but actually, you know, digitally panning across the image, which just made it look very bizarre, and it had kind of that motion, you know, problem where it would kind of shake when it did it. So, yeah, it's frustrating as a film buff.
Yeah, it absolutely is. But again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, and I think you fully agree with this. It's our job as true cinephiles to be the educators. Like, the younger generation isn't going to be properly educated unless people like us stand up and do it and take on that responsibility.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things I want to get into really quickly, because unfortunately we're running out of time, and I honestly should have asked you this question first, but the conversation just sort of flowed. So hopefully you can get it in about 4 or 5 minutes time. But what was it that made you realize that you're a cinephile? Like, was it a particular film, a particular director? Like, what was that moment where you're like, movies aren't just something that I see occasionally on TV. This is like where my passion is. This is what I want to do with my life. What was that moment in time for you?
You know what, the moment in time for me I'll never forget, because I was too young to be watching this film. So I'll say that before I even get into it. But
right.
I think I must have been 13 or something like that, and I watched Stanley Kubrick's 2001 for the first time. And I had never seen a movie that, I mean, I had never watched anything that had kept me captivated, even at 13 years old. And I think a lot of 13-year-olds would find that movie boring actually nowadays, but I was totally enamored with it. And just, you know, seeing Stanley Kubrick's style for the first time, and just the epicness, the music, the opening with the, you know, days of evolution and the apes, and then forwarding to the future, and this black monolith, all the mysterious elements to the film were just so incredible. And I fell in love with Stanley Kubrick's work in all of his movies, and I instantly, I think within a month or two, had watched every single movie he had ever made. And he still to this day is my favorite director, and the person, you know, in my movie life so far that I have been most fascinated by, and who really drew me into the world of film, and to, you know, focus on other directors too, and you'll see what their work was like. But that was that moment for me that really said, wow, this is something, you know, just more than, you know, watching, you know, Willow on a Friday night. So
very, very cool. Well, that's a wonderful choice, and there's a reason that I will call Stanley Kubrick the master of cinema. Anytime that I get a new Kubrick edition to my collection, I say, from the master of cinema, Stanley Kubrick, because to me that is the most true saying that anyone could ever say.
I totally agree. Was a fascinating man. I remember I must have been 16, I think, when he died. And, celebrities, die all the time, right? We have in the news different celebrities from this or that. And even at like 16, I remember really feeling sick to my stomach for that day, thinking about it, because I just knew, what we had lost, what a legend and what an incredible filmmaker. And it was very unexpected too. He wasn't that old. So
yeah, we're gonna go through the same thing, even though his life has been thankfully so much longer, but we're gonna suffer through the same thing when we have it happen to the great Martin Scorsese, who we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The exact same thing is going to happen to the world of cinema. It'll never be the same again. But for me, really quickly, because I'm sure you're curious, my audience already knows this, but for me, my two moments were E.T. and Blade Runner. And I had the exact same experience with Blade Runner that you had with 2001. I saw it when I was like 6 years old. Oh. And that is way too young to be seeing a film like that. Right. But that film, just changed everything for me. And ever since then, all I've ever wanted to do is make films. And thankfully, with the advances of HD cameras, everybody can make a film now. And hopefully someday I'll have something somewhere that somebody notices, and I'll be like J.J. Abrams and get to take off and get to do what I want to do. But even if I don't, at least I have this platform with the Raz Man's Reality to share my passion. So, I feel very blessed about that. But with that, unfortunately, we are out of time for this week, so I want to sincerely thank you once again, Pete, for being here. And I tell you from the bottom of my heart, the same way I say to everyone that's ever on the show, you are welcome back. Anytime that you ever want to come back on the show, just contact me and we'll do another hour. We'll do 2 or 3 more hours, do them all in one setting and get it done. You're welcome back on this show anytime, and you're welcome to interact with me on any video projects, because I truly think you're one of the most entertaining people we have now in the film community. I forgot to get into this with you, but real quick in closing, I just want to give you a compliment in the fact that I love how easily it is for you to do a review in such a short amount of time. Like, a lot of us, when we have a lot to say about a film, it goes 15, 20, 25 minutes. But you seem to get the point across in 5 or 10 minutes in every review, and I really admire that, because I don't feel like I'm being shortchanged by watching a shorter video.
Oh, you're incredibly kind, Raz. That's just some of the kindest words I've heard from anyone, and I so appreciate you having me on and everything that you do. I think it's great to have you in the community, and I look forward to doing this again with you. I just appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Pete, and the feeling is mutual. As always, archives of this show available 24/7 at ondemand.audiograded.com and on iTunes by searching US Podcast under the Raz Man's Reality Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Raz Man's Reality to be booked on the program. It's Raz Man's Reality at audiograded.com is the email. Also, don't forget to check out our sponsor website, geeky.com. When it's just not geeky enough, that's G3ZK-E.com. This is reality according to the Raz Man. And Raz Man style, it's not just a catchphrase, but a way of life.
To keep up with the latest on Raz Man's Reality, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/RazMan'sReality.